Yo, what is up, everybody? We are here. Last minute live stream. I was just barely on the mountain with one of my buddies helping him pull his camper up. We're getting ready for hunting season in Colorado. So I wanted to come back and I had time left in the evening. So I decided I wanted to jump on a live stream. There's some good things going on in the market. Figured we should talk about them. Wanted to answer some questions. Meatus's ass. I love you, bro. I'm sorry that it's underperformed in the last while, but truthfully, I'm confident Meatus is going to take off. It's one of my biggest positions. I'm kind of right there with you, but I do agree in its own way. But man, brutal bull. I mean, that's the thing, guys. Like that's the common thought that I've heard expressed lately is that this is kind of like the worst bull market ever. And to an extent, I guess that is true. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, like, I feel like it's just been more centrally focused on you have to be one of the very first people to identify these narratives to make profit, because there has been a few key narratives that you could have made a lot of profit on this cycle. It's just a matter of like being early to those trends. So realistically, majority of the profit's been earned by smart money that's been early to specific chains and narratives like meme coins. On Solana, that was kind of the first thing, pumped out fun. And then if you we're also being aware of like the agent market, AI agents, that was something that blew up on base chain as well. Same thing with Solana. They took off over there. So there's been key narratives throughout the cycle. Even looking at the layer twos at the beginning of this cycle with Arbitrum, that was when Meatus did like over 10x in the course of like a few weeks. So there's been key narratives that have made profit, but you've had to have kind of like known where to put your money beforehand. So I do understand that this hasn't been kind of an everything type of cycle up to this point, but I do think that it's going to happen, you know. See his ass. Pulse chain his ass. Come on, man. Okay, you better be joking. But to be fair, like everything's pretty much down, so like I understand your sentiment. 808 Buddha, good to have you. I appreciate the support. You've always been a big supporter. I'm sick of this kangaroo chop. I mean, it's part of the game, man. We're going to look at some charts. We're going to look at some things. I'm going to help you guys to understand that the bigger picture is still primed. I don't think anything's changed up to this point. So let's see here. Nice to catch you live. I appreciate you for the support. Honestly, it's good to be live. I appreciate doing these because I have a little bit more fun being live than just making a video. But I have fun doing videos too, you know. If I get excited about a video, I see something going on in the charts, it's fun to jump on here and talk to you guys about it and be able to talk about different things. So first time live. Well, I appreciate that I get to be the first person that you're live with. It's good to have you a part of this magical mayhem. Let's look at some stuff here, friends. Let's go take a peek at the market. Okay, so I made a chart today. Let's start with this. Oh, hold on. How do I share my screen? This is it. Okay. Alrighty, so here we are. You guys can all see this. It appears that you can see this. Study this picture. Study this right now. Because I'm telling you guys right now, we're about to make so much money over the course of the next few months. This is about to be one of the craziest, most life-changing opportunities we've ever seen. I really have, I mean, I said that in the last cycle. And even though there was a lot of opportunity in the last cycle, what I was anticipating would happen last cycle is what's really happening this cycle. So I was a little bit, too far ahead of myself in anticipating that we would have institutions, that we'd have these things, because we really didn't see that in the last cycle. The majority of the appreciation of price was people just having, the cutting of interest rates, and then they printed so much money. So then we saw the market kind of explode through that. But it really wasn't necessarily driven by a lot of like actual growth. This cycle, we've seen institutions, and up to this point, it's actually only been smart money and institutions. So now as we're getting into the deeper portion of the cycle, I'm anticipating that we're, pretty much getting to that point where things start to actually run and go parabolic. And if you look at every single one of our cycles, it's all been pretty much the exact same. Once we build that parabolic curve, we go up. We've always had some, sort of blow off top up to this point. But then ultimately, when we break that trend line, that's what signals that bear market lower. But we've done this every single time. It doesn't matter, even with our last cycle being a little bit smaller in comparison to 2017, it still made this pretty decent size move into new all-time highs. So realistically, if we're looking at the way things are today, we held really great support. If we're looking at the comparison of how bad realistically, this chart doesn't actually go back far enough, but this was a much deeper correction into this cycle than it was into our second cycle. So realistically, the volatility just kind of depleted. It didn't go as high to the upside, it didn't go as low to the downside. But, we've been consistently growing on this new parabolic curve as we're getting closer towards our new all-time highs. And we're really just moments away from breaking out of those. So realistically, when we're paying attention to all of those details, once we break out of these, that's kind of the go-ahead that I think altcoins are really going to start to run. Now, keep in mind that this is the total market cap 3, so this is excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is true alt season in a chart. And what's really interesting about this chart is the fact that if you actually look at the total 2 in comparison to the total 3, remember when Ethereum had such a big washout and it made that big sell-off all the way back down to its range lows? Well, the total 3 actually held better support than the total market cap 2 when you're including Ethereum because of that big shakeout. So realistically, the total altcoin chart, which is obviously going to be everything excluding Ethereum, because you always see Bitcoin lead the cycles, you always see Bitcoin break out, make a new all-time high, and then when that rotation takes place, then you see Ethereum start to take off. And we've seen that up to this point. We've seen ETH really start to run. If we come over here and look at the Ethereum chart, ETH has made this great big breakout. We've been watching for this for a while. I've been updating you guys how we've been breaking out of not only this horizontal resistance right here, but we also have already broken out of this downtrending resistance, which took place here. So this is kind of a breakout of 2 different levels. So, even though we are seeing this pullback right in here, it doesn't change anything from the bigger picture. Overall, this is just a retest of this entire range. Even if we came all the way back down to retest the same $4,000 level, it doesn't really change anything, because in the higher time frames, looking at a weekly time frame specifically, this is just a higher time frame breakout and a retest before we do end up seeing this thing go up much higher. And it's my belief that we do see Ethereum topping somewhere between 15 to 20,000. I think that that's what's going to be the actual peak of this cycle. Could be wrong, but that's just my kind of guess on the matter. And all of this is being fueled. And if we come over here and look at this, total 3, this is excluding Ethereum. So Ethereum's going to lead with, Bitcoin leads first. It breaks out. Ethereum starts to follow it. Once people start to rotate out of Bitcoin. And then it's the total 3, all of the other altcoins in the market that then follow Ethereum. So whenever we see this chart break out, it's more or less like the true alt season chart, because if we're excluding Ethereum, it's not really true alt season unless all of the altcoins are blowing up with Ethereum. But none of that really happens until Ethereum is already breaking out. So we're really watching for Ethereum to break out. Alt season is more driven around ETH. Once ETH starts to run, that rotation trickles out of ETH and actually comes back into these other market cap, or these other cryptos inside of the total 3 market cap. So right now, we've already retested this prior all-time high. We've hit it here. We've hit it here. We've hit it here. We're hitting it right now once again. Actually, we've hit it a couple times in here. And, regardless of this dip, even if we come back down a little bit lower, I don't really think it changes the perspective of us breaking out, starting a much bigger push into new all-time highs. Even if there's a dip, we're going to be anticipating something along the lines of this coming next. And it's very, much of, it's like, well, how am I trying to explain this? It's pretty much the same type of stuff that's been happening up to this point. And so even though people have hated on this cycle, they've said it's worse than anything we've seen, all of this stuff, I don't really think it actually is. I really think that we're just kind of moments away from that big new all-time high breakout. And when that takes place, chances are that's going to be the most impulsive time that we're going to be a part of. So, I think that the majority of our profit's going to be made in there, and it's probably just going to happen in kind of one big parabolic push. That's kind of my idea and perspective on what I think is going to end up playing out. First time seeing you live. You got a dope channel. I appreciate the support, King J. It means a lot. It's good to have you part of the channel too. Glad that you're on this live stream, to be honest. I love doing live streams. It's a lot more fun to be able to do this type of stuff and, you know, be able to actually answer some of your guys' questions that you have. Can we not freaking wait? Please call the top so I can sell ETH. I'm right there with you. You know, we're going to see these things take off and we're going to be dumping all of it because truthfully, we don't want to be a part of this next sell-off. This is going to be a pretty gnarly bear market. I can promise you that. My issue is the 4-year cycle theory. I don't know why you would have an issue with that because it's ultimately just a form of technical analysis. And if you look at where every single one of the bottoms of the bear market is, it's exactly 4 years. You measure a 4-year cycle from the bottoms of the bear market to the bottom of the next bear market. You don't measure it from, you know, the peak. So that's the one thing that changes. So, I mean, realistically, the 4-year cycle is just a way to be able to map out the cycles. And if you look at every single one of our bull markets, they've followed a 4-year cycle to the T, you know, within a matter of 1 month over the course of 4 years. And then to do that every single 4 years over the course of 15, I mean, I don't know why you could deny that. To me, it's just kind of an obvious thing to be watching for, regardless of whether you think it's going to keep playing out or, you know, all of those things. You know, I still think that it's every cycle is always different in its own way. You know, in 2017, it took longer than even the last cycle did before it broke out. The last cycle happened at the quickest pace we'd ever seen, even though there was way more money involved with it. This cycle has been, you know, actually the slowest as far as us just building a parabolic trend. But, you know, what's to say that this isn't also the biggest blow off top that we've ever seen because of all the institutions and all of the retail money that we're going to see. We still don't even know what's going to happen over the next 4 months. But the way that the charts look, this is exactly the same as every parabolic trend that we've ever seen. It's obviously the price action can be unique in its own way. But when we're looking at the price chart of these things, like it's no different than any of the prior cycles. We bottomed 4 years from the last prior cycle bottom, which was 4 years from the last prior cycle low. So, I mean, like, you know, like there really isn't anything different. The only difference I would say is maybe there's lesser because there's lesser volatility. Maybe we don't run in the same ways as parabolic. But to be honest, I don't even think that's the case either. And I think that's all going to get proven wrong very shortly when we see this market start to break new all-time highs. You know, I think it's going to catch people by surprise just how quickly we do actually go up into this new run. I hope the 4-year cycle continues for the foreseeable future. Yeah, I feel you with that. It would be nice, but I don't necessarily think it will. I think this cycle might be the true last of the, you know, 4-year cycle, consistent. Every single 4 years, we bottom into a new bear market and start a new cycle. I think that that's probably going to change after this one. But the fact that we've even followed that up to this point, you know, it's a great thing because it gives us another blueprint that we can look forward to into this bull market. And, you know, the one thing that that changes with the 4-year cycle is actually where the cycle tops at. So, you know, a 4-year cycle is gauged from cycle low to cycle low. So where that cycle peaks at, that's the one thing that can change. That's the variable that changes. So, you know, this cycle could actually peak at the end of this year in the same ways that all of the other cycles have peaked. It could also actually peak a little bit earlier. You know, what if it peaked early? What if we just had this great big pump into November and then we just ended up peaking and it was more along that sort of time frame? I don't think that's the case. I think that's more of the least likely scenario because of the way that the cycle looks up to this point. But I think that the other scenario, you know, would be that we could actually have a peak maybe in February of March of 2026. This is the only variable that changes in the 4-year cycle is where the cycle peaks at. So whether it's a little bit further into 2026, as you know, I really wouldn't be looking any more than March. And to be honest, I will have already exited out of that point of the cycle. I'm not willing to hold that deep into it. And even if it kept running like that and I missed out on those profits, I'm more happy accepting that I didn't sell at the exact top, knowing that I rode the majority of the trend, understanding that I can also just buy back into the bear market when that happens. And, you know, the discounts that happen in the bear market are so massive that you make way more money just by willing to sell at the bull market, even if you're not nailing the top. So that's my thoughts with it. You're better off just kind of focusing in, getting in relatively close to the top. The end of the year timeframes is going to be pretty much where we're looking to take profits. Even if it ends up running a little bit into 2026, we can keep a portion of our bag that we leave just in case it does run a little bit further. And there's always ways that we can kind of trade depending on the way that the market's going to move. But the most important thing that we can do is obviously selling. As I look at the cycle now, we're still sitting below the all-time highs. We haven't had true alt season. I'm not actually, feeling like super greedy in the way of selling right now. I'm totally content with just holding my bags. But there's going to be a certain point in the same ways that earlier this cycle when we started. Guys, I think the best way to compare it, a lot of people weren't into NFTs in the last cycle, but in the NFT market, some guy posted a picture today, and I really wish I would have saved it or retweeted it. But it was literally just an image. It was a black image, and then all it said was one wooden bat, one red hat, pair of pants. And it was just going through this little list of different items that this character had. But that was the NFT. It was literally just a blank image telling what the character was, his traits were. And it had no picture of the character. It had nothing. There was no game. There was no anything. And they were selling for over 50 Ethereum a piece at the time where Ethereum was worth $4,000 and $5,000 about. So that was what the NFT market market cycle top looked like. Just pure euphoria. You had Gary Vaynerchuk. He was taking a little notebook paper, and he would just draw a quick 10-second outline of a cat, and he would just take a picture of that, and he would post it on the blockchain and make a token for an NFT, and the NFT would be worth 15 Ethereum. It was stupid stuff that has no business ever being worth any money. It's all just, it's an illusion. Just, we see all this euphoria enter the market, and stupid stuff becomes worth a lot. And it always crashes. It always goes to zero. If you always look at what all of those, if you just go back and look at what those things I was talking about are worth, the V-Friends, Gary Vaynerchuk's NFTs are actually still worth relatively good amounts of money considering how garbage they are. But all of the other projects I was talking about, they're completely worthless, 99.9% loss in value type of stuff. Especially, every cycle we see these narratives. We saw DeFi. 99% of the DeFi coins went to zero. We saw NFTs. 99% of the NFTs went to zero. We've always seen these sort of narratives take off. And in this cycle, we're going to see everything, whatever new narratives are going to spin off. In my opinion, it's going to be AI. We've seen AI already start to show a strong dominance in the cycle, but we've already have other stuff. We have NFTs. I believe NFTs are going to have another run. We have DeFi. I believe DeFi is going to have another run. It makes sense because we have institutions for the first time. Obviously, they're going to consolidate some bets into the DeFi infrastructure and whatnot. So there's a lot of reasons that tell me this cycle is the institutional cycle. Well, obvious, that's kind of stupid, but this is obviously the institutional cycle because the institutions are the first time they've ever participated is now. So the institutions are here. We know that. What we generally will end up seeing after is a retail explosion. It's always been the assumption that the retail institutional cycle would be the biggest. So we're kind of at the forefront of all of that. We're about to break all-time highs. Everything we need to see up to this point has happened. Yeah, I guess maybe it's lagged a little bit in comparison to some other cycles, but we literally have institutions, Donald Trump launching meme coins. I don't know what's bearish about that. I don't even know why people would think that, that's none of this stuff is good. Maybe the cycle has lagged in comparison, but Donald Trump, the sitting president of the United States, launched a meme coin. That seems so crazy to me, that the idea that we're not going to have an absolutely massive breakout where the market's just completely moon. That to me is just insane. We really are at the peak of the euphoria cycles. And I think that all of that's going to come to a head in the next few months. And even though things haven't necessarily broken out a lot, I'm not even gonna entertain that argument, because there has been a lot of stuff that's made a lot of money. I've made a lot of money off random different altcoins this cycle already. Yes, you had to have been early to specific narratives. Like, you kind of had to, have a knowing about what's going to take off and kind of speculate it into the right places. But there's been a lot of opportunity for profit this cycle. It's just a matter of, I guess, yeah, not everything is taken off. Not everything is pumped. But man, I held on to a lot of altcoins that were down 50, 60, 70%. And they went up, 40, 50x, 100x in value. So it's part of the game, man. You just got to be willing to hold through the bull crap, because once the tables turn, it's all of these 3-year corrections where they're just going down and sideways. One green candle erases literally half of that entire chart, and then you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, why didn't I buy more? And that's the way every cycle's played out. I'm telling you, this is my third bull market. I've been through literally every single altcoin bull run we've ever had. So, unless my opinion doesn't mean anything, which maybe it doesn't. But shit, man, I feel like it kind of does. I've at least seen these cycles enough times and been able to make a profit with them. Thoughts on Link and its recent partnership with the U.S. Government of Commerce to bring government data on chain? Great. That's awesome. Realistically, I've always believed Chainlink was going to be kind of at the forefront of institutional adoption. So we're kind of, seeing that in full effect. So we're going to see that all more and more. I've always believed a lot in Chainlink because data is arguably the most important asset that we have in the new digital age. So anybody that's kind of being at the forefront of harvesting all of that data, we've already seen what the social media companies have been able to do with our data, what, Google, all of these other search engines and whatnot. So realistically, it's going to be one of the very best tokens. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Let me get up here close. I've been blabbering on so much, I forgot what these earlier comments were. So let's just look at some of these. Top isn't it until the aliens drop a ticker. Well, which is the alien ticker? Which one are we going with? I just want ETH to start moving already. What? What do you mean? Was this not good enough for you? It just pumped 3.5x. And now it's sitting on top of support. I feel you, though. If you're waiting for true alt season, it's got to obviously get up here quite a bit higher. But, man, I think it looks amazing. Is a recession coming next year? To be honest, I would imagine around 2030. We're going to peak here at the end of 2026 or the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. 1 year bear market, beginning of 2027. Yeah. Realistically, I would imagine around 2030 is when we're going to see a real washout in a lot of different markets. Everybody can speculate on when the actual collapse is. Nobody knows when that's going to be. Realistically, we probably just see another great big sell-off. So I don't know exactly when, but honestly, I think 2030 is going to be a great big shifting point in the market where we do see a lot of, realistically, here's the tricky part. We might be entering a point where around 2030, we actually go into a period of deflation, right? We've seen gold start to take off. There's all this rumor of war. We've seen all of this inflation. We've seen interest rates rising, all of this stuff. Because of all of this, more and more people are priced out of homes. There's actually more of a supply of real estate than ever before, even higher than 2008. So we're realistically, like, all of the negative bearish signals are there showing weakness. Like, we need a washout. We need a pullback. We need a lot of, selling in these sort of markets. And realistically, the way I look at it is around 2030, we're probably going to experience a deflationary period where, it doesn't really matter which asset class you're in, but everything sells off at the same time. Not only does the dollar depreciate in value, but gold depreciates in value, but silver depreciates in value, crypto depreciates in value, real estate depreciates in value. And those are always the hardest time for the economy, because that's when everybody gets screwed the most. It doesn't really matter which asset class you're in. Everything is going through deflation, so it's all going down at the same time. So those are always the toughest periods to be able to work through. And I honestly think that we're headed towards one of those. So if we're talking about that happening relatively soon, what is the best thing to be in at that point? And my guess is probably just the dollar still. I mean, it's probably going to go down less than all of the other stuff. So even though you're still losing money inside of the dollar, you're probably still better off actually holding the dollar, because then you can actually buy whenever that is, whether it's a 1 year or 2 year bear market that we end up seeing. I think that would be an amazing opportunity that you could actually jump back into the markets, because there's no doubt that we're overvalued across the board in everything. I mean, everything is overvalued. Nobody can afford to hardly live anymore because of inflation. So with all of that being known, a shakeout to a large degree, I think, is very much on the table, and I think it's coming soon. When that is, that can be debatable. I think it's going to be around 2030, but we really don't know. I mean, it's not like I have some crystal ball in my pocket that I can just tell everything is going to happen. Will you still be making content in the next cycle? Yeah, I think I will. I don't see why that would change up in any sort of way. I mean, realistically, the only thing that would change is maybe like the type of content that I would make. I mean, I wouldn't be making it about anything aside from what we're already doing on here. But realistically, if I plan to take profits on crypto and I move into some other market that I really believe in, I'll probably end up covering charts over there. So like, that's the only real difference I would end up seeing. I don't think I'm going to disappear. If I made too much money, then, maybe I'd upload a little less, but I don't really think I would. I think maybe if anything, I'd just upload more frequently because I have more fun doing it. Who is going to buy your pulse bags when it's not listed on any major exchanges? Well, I mean, who bought Hex in the last cycle when it wasn't listed on any major exchanges? It literally hit $88 billion in market cap. It was top 3 right behind Bitcoin and Ethereum in market cap when it pumped. So like, I mean, Binance coin only hit a little bit over that, and that's Binance coin. So and that was during a time when it was more blacklisted than anything, in a time where more of the coins relied on centralized exchanges than anything. So, I'm not really a big Hex fan or anything, but the fact that it did what it did perfectly showcased that Richard Hart can pump any token. Because here's the thing. The reason Hex pumps so hard is because it's a supply and demand factor. There was a very teeny amount of existing supply that existed for the DEXs on Uniswap. What people don't realize is Hex was one of the first tokens listed on Uniswap. They were some of the first people trading on the DEXs and on chain, way before DeFi summer had ever happened. And so realistically, people don't realize that there's actually more money that exists on chain that can bridge on chain. And so, it doesn't really matter that much anymore, especially this cycle. We've already seen how on-chain altcoins can, blow up. There's been multiple on-chain altcoins hit multiple billions of dollars in market cap. That's not even a question in my mind. Something doesn't need to be on major exchanges to be bullish on it. Exactly. Deflation will be caused by AI. My guess is Tesla will be the play with Optimus. I mean, who knows, really? I don't know if necessarily AI is going to cause it or what, but I think realistically, we've kind of just been destined for deflation because of the way that we've printed so much money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Compare Metis and Loopring. Why? Do they look similar? loop ring. Why do you want to compare these two? They don't even look the same. These are two different charts. If we pull up Midas, I mean, these don't even look the same in my opinion. Look, literally all that's happening with Midas, it's consolidating in the exact same bottom formation that it's always been at. There's literally no difference here. Same consolidation here, same consolidation here, same consolidation here, same here, same here, same here. Even if it came back down and retested this low, it's still in the same range. It doesn't change anything. I have no problem holding on to stuff as it consolidates up and down. At one point, you know, from the range low to where this thing peaked at, this thing was like 12x. I didn't even grab the exact bottom. It was like 15x that this thing ended up pumping in that one move and then came all the way back down. So this is just part of the game when it comes to these altcoins. When they're in consolidation, you know, they don't look like they're going to do anything. Everybody loses money, all of that fun stuff. And then all of a sudden they end up pumping, and then they just do these type of things all in one go. And that's just the way it works. I have no problem holding on to these things as they, you know, go in and out of these consolidations, because I've already done all of this before. I've already held on to all of this stuff when none of it made sense, when it felt like I wasn't going to make any money, and when I was down 70+% on my investment. I bought Cardano over here at 5.5 cents. It went down 67.5% approximately. Made a new all-time low on this chart. It made a new all-time low, and I still held it. And guess what happened? It went up 55x over the course of the next 2 years. That's just part of the game. You know, you're going to see this stuff, but you're betting on something bigger. You're betting on the idea of something getting adoption. There's reasons why things get adoption. Layer 2s get adoption because ETH sucks. ETH is going to suck the cycle in the same ways that it does every cycle. Nothing's changed there. So we're pretty much just looking for the same stuff. Technical analysis on layer 2s, they pump the last. Yeah, they do. But that's because you got to wait for Ethereum to go up. Yes, I'm bullish on Midas. I am confused. I am confused. Printing money causes inflation. No? Yeah, it does, of course. Printing money causes a lot of inflation. But they're going to cut, what they're planning on doing is cutting interest rates soon. So when they cut interest rates, it increases how much money they're actually going to be end up printing. Cutting interest rates just increases the more debt that people end up taking out, right? So more people are encouraged to take out debt, you know, invest into the economy, invest into businesses, invest into whatever the heck it is they want to do. And so that ends up boosting and stimulating the economy, but oftentimes at the expense of more inflation. The world is going to change more by 2030 than it has in the last 100 years because of AI. Honestly, AI is kind of crazy. Who knows what exactly all happens with that? But we know for a fact that things are going to get definitely different because, I mean, what AI does, AI is so nice to use. I use AI constantly, and it's really amazing how it's like a calculator for everything. So when we talk about what it's going to be able to do in the future, I mean, I'm currently working on a new AI project right now. I'll drop it to you guys. I'm telling you guys right now, you guys are the very first people to ever hear about this. I haven't told this anybody on public. I haven't done any of this to anybody. Like, this is as underground as it can get. We haven't been public with anything. So there's currently 161 people watching this right now. If you're watching this, just understand that you are earlier than literally every single person in the market. I haven't told KOLs about this project. I haven't told literally anybody. It's only the team and I that have been working on this. So if this is something you guys are interested in, I will actually share the tab and you guys can get the first access of understanding of what this is. And you guys get this because you are my followers. Okay, I'm going to share the tab, and you guys are going to see the new project I'm working on. And I'm telling you guys, this thing's revolutionary. Okay. Grand reveal. This is it. So me and some friends are working on, basically, if you guys don't know what an AI agent is, an AI agent is an AI protocol that does something for you. It does a task for you. And you can program an agent to do anything. On base chain a few months ago, we ended up seeing a big bull run on AI agents. And basically what it was these random AI agents that would do something. Like a lot of them didn't do anything at all. It was just an agent that was backed to a token, and it would say like stupid flappy dappy coin, and then it would have this like AI agent that was just a meme coin attached to it. So most of them actually did nothing. Like it wasn't like an actual agent that went out there and performed a task and all this stuff. So all of these agents were blowing up. Now, in my opinion, what's going to happen in the future is everybody's going to be utilizing these AI agents, because AI agents are more or less going to be the calculators that automate everything for us. So Web3 today is super complex. Everybody has issues with it. So what we're basically building is AI, an entire AI network of agents that you can be able to program them to do literally anything on the blockchain. If you wanted them to be able to go yield farm for you, but you don't know how to do all of the stuff on chain and swap into this and bridge over here and, you know, provide liquidity here and all of that stuff, you can literally just program an agent, drag and drop it on this little web, and it will just do all of the things for you and just basically make you profit and participate in DeFi. You can launch a coin, and all you have to do is it basically in the same way that like ChatGPT works. Imagine if you just got on ChatGPT and you said, launch me a token that is a ChatGPT fork that has a DAO governance and does all of these things. And then it would load for you. And then it would just go and launch that entire thing instantly. Like imagine ChatGPT, but for crypto, where you can just type into a chat bar what you want it to do, and it will go do that thing for you. That's more or less what we're building. So all of these different agents are going to connect together, agents that transact. All my agents can independently earn, spend, and collaborate, forming self-sustaining networks. Entirely new economic models become possible, reshaping the way value is created, exchanged, and owned. Number 2, Genesis swarms. This is really cool, because more or less what it means is you can plug in multiple agents at the same time. So one agent can yield farm for you. One agent can go over here and launch tokens. One agent can go and provide liquidity and earn interest in sort of these and earn like arbitrage and stuff. So you can program the agents to do anything in crypto. And then you can plug multiple agents together to create these intricate webs where they're ultimately automating everything in DeFi for you, and you don't have to do anything. You just earn all of the money. So Genesis swarms. On my choreographs clusters of specialized agents into swarms, smart swarms that share context, delegate tasks, and converge on a single objective in real time. Collateralized credibility. Aave binds every agent to a bonded reputation token that grows with each verified win and burns on failure, turning trust itself into an on-chain asset. So basically, you're going to be able to go and view every single agent on the market, and there's going to be a trust score related with how well they perform, how much money they earn, and you're going to be able to actually trade these as a token amongst the entire network. So you can earn off of your agents. If you go and build an agent and it does really well, and you know everybody can see that it does well, you can literally go and sell your agent and trade it on a marketplace, and you can earn profit that way. So it's a very intricate system, but this is kind of an example. Spin up an on-chain tournament where agents battle, trading PNL top 10%. Auto promote to legendary tier. Losers burn 5% bond. So then you basically have this chat GPT box that pops up, and then it does all of this stuff for you. Understood. We'll stage a season-long P&L battle cup, agent stake bonds, trade in share in a shared sandbox, and earn points from realized P&L. At each epoch close, 1, rank by net return, 2, promote top decile by legendary, boost task priority, badge NFT, all of this stuff. But it's literally creating the smart contracts and doing everything for you and building out this entire thing. And we have 3 different agents that all have like their own specified area where they do their expertise, I guess you could say. You have the agent S1, the macro strategist. From a strategic, and keep in mind that this is them thinking right now. Like, you typed in what you want them to do, and now they're literally thinking and putting it out into context in real time. So you said that this is what you want to do. And then agent S1, the macro strategist, says, from a strategic standpoint, will 1, tournament economics, size prize pool from cumulative slashed bonds, sponsor purse, calibrate epochs, e.g. 7-day rolling windows to balance turnover versus data noise, add reputation multiplier. You know, all of this stuff is more technical, but every single one of these agents are going to be performing a different task. And it's through this like chat GPT type formation where you can literally just type into a chat box and it will just automate everything for you. And then the big thing is we're actually backed by Sui. So we have Sui's entire dev support. You know, our team members have contacted and been on calls with the founder of Sui. Like, we are working like with them to more or less get this, and we're launching it on Sui and all of this stuff. So this is completely brand new AI infrastructure. We're launching this with Sui. We have their dev team that's helping us build this thing out. We're going to raise money for this because it's going to be something that is, you know, ultimately really expensive to be able to build. We're kind of like paving the way for the way agents work, because there's nothing like this that's ever been done. This is legitimately brand new technology. It doesn't exist. There's nothing even close to what this exists. And if you look at the current AI agent framework, it's pretty basic. There's platforms that allow you to launch an agent, but that's pretty much all. You know, they don't really have a lot of context and depth to them. And a lot of that requires like real know-how of programming. This way, you can literally just type into a chat GPT format what you want it to do, and it will just go out and build that thing for you, all on a decentralized Web3 way. And it's all going to be done on Sui. And the fun part is, you know, we can expand this past Sui. We can, you know, plug this same formula into these other blockchains, and we can do the same thing. But, you know, more or less, this is kind of the way it works. If you were to drag and drop your AI agents, this is kind of what the web would look like. You can have all of these different sort of things working together side by side, all profiting you as the holder, automated, where you don't actually have to do anything. You know, you just have to launch the agents. And even if you don't know how to do this stuff, if you don't know how to launch an agent, you can go copy somebody that already has proved that they can, you know, create these profitable agents, because there's an entire marketplace to be able to trade them. You don't even have to buy them. You literally just have to go and copy some of the people on a public leaderboard, and you could just be able to follow along with all of these different things and make profit with it. So, you know, realistically, this thing is going to be huge. You know, however many people actually follow along with it, whatever, but you guys are the very first people to actually hear about this, because we haven't even gone public yet. And I'm telling you, it's going to be absolutely massive. So watch out for Aave. If you guys want to go follow the Twitter, I'll post it right here. I haven't been public with the Twitter either. If I can find it, hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay, here's the Twitter account. I'll post the video. I'll show you guys the video. But yeah, this is our account. You guys can go and follow it. You guys can see everything, but we're going to be launching this here fairly soon. And I'm telling you guys, Sui is Solana and the Ethereum of this cycle. You guys are definitely going to be wanting to pay attention to this one because we're backed by Sui. We have their full dev support. We've already been on multiple calls with the founder. Like, I'm telling you, this thing is going to be huge. But yeah, anyway, I don't need to go into more detail about that. You guys got any questions? Let's see you guys drop some questions. Let's talk about crypto. I'm trying to show you guys a chart. I can't find it anymore. I can't find it. I must have closed out of it. Let's take some peeks over here at some of the indexes, though. We're going to go take a look at D.I.Y Llama. Oh, I got my music still turned on. All right. We're going to D.I.Y Llama, and we're going to look at some of this stuff. They updated everything, and it's kind of confusing for some reason. But if you look at what chains have the most TVL, Aave is always top ranked. Lido DAO sometimes flips it, but realistically, Aave is the best one. And I'm telling you guys, if you want a good token that's going to perform this cycle, Aave is just such an obvious setup. You have a perfect little dip to be able to buy some in. This yellow outline is actually the TVL, because if we came over here on D.I.Y Llama and we click on Aave, the total value locked is skyrocketing. So what that shows is that there's more people locking money on the Aave smart contracts than ever before, even more than was at the peak of the last cycle. And yet, if you look at where the price is, it's clear down here at $319. So we still have a ways to go. In my opinion, these are the most obvious type of buy setups because TVL is a reflection of volume. So if you have all of this new volume breaking out and yet the price is still all the way down here, I mean, it's pretty obvious that this is going to continue to trend up in the same ways that this did up here. So Aave, in the institutional cycle, if you're talking about lending, there's not a more obvious buy setup than this because this is the biggest lending protocol that exists. It's built on Ethereum, which we're already seeing massive institutional adoption. There's a lot of reasons for why it's going to go up. So I think that we should definitely be paying attention for that. What are you drinking? I'm drinking a beer. Do you still see Ink being the best performer of Richard Hart cores this cycle? I mean, that's the thing. I never really have known what Ink is going to end up doing, whether it was going to end up outperforming or underperforming. But I've always had a hunch that it would end up actually outperforming everything because it's got such a smaller amount of market cap. And now that there's not nearly the same amount of inflation that's going on, I still think that that's the case. But realistically, when we're looking at this chart, all Ink is doing is a Wyckoff accumulation, which if I remove this green box, we can kind of see that. So we have a low here, and then you notice that it makes this bounce back up into resistance. This is resistance, right? This is resistance right here. So we had support, bounce into resistance. We come back down into this kind of mid-range, and then we rally back up and reject off of that same resistance. And then the secondary retest is where we come all the way back down to that same primary low. And that's the bottom of the Wyckoff, right? So then we consolidate, and then the next move that ends up happening is what's called the markup phase of a Wyckoff accumulation. and it'll run back up and it'll break above the top of this resistance. It'll pull back and it'll hold support on that. And then it'll start running into its next cycle. So realistically, all this was the first impulse to start a new cycle. We corrected back down, but then we did this Wyckoff accumulation, which is more or less a double bottom formation. And now all we're really waiting for is for when it does this markup phase into the next portion of the cycle. But the reason why I think that it can outperform everything is because it's so heavily liquidity bonded with everything, yet it's got such a smaller amount of market cap and the supply is a lot smaller. So I think that there could be a period where this thing ends up ripping up really, really, really hard. And if it only goes back up to the prior all-time high, which I believe it does, that's almost 60x away from right now. So I really do think that this is going to be, I still lean towards this being the biggest outperformer. Wow, I just explained all of that and I wasn't even sharing the ink tab. Oh, balls. But yeah, that's what I'm explaining is what I just have now shown you guys. Hold on. Let me zoom back in here. Let me re-explain everything. God damn it. Okay. So basically, with ink, we had this first impulse, and then we had this big correction back down. We've always maintained higher highs. This is still a higher high. Very obvious to tell, right? So nothing is broken as far as market structure. But then what we ended up experiencing right here and right here, that wasn't quite low enough, but right here was a Wyckoff. So let me grab a chart of the Wyckoff so that you guys can actually see what it looks like. Okay. Oh, I can't share it. Okay, hold on. I'll share it with you guys right here. So if we look, this is what a Wyckoff accumulation looks like. So basically you have the low, the range high, you come back down close to those range lows, but it's technically what's called the mid-range point. It rallies back up into those same range highs, rejects again, and then you have what's called the spring, right? And this is the final capitulation. And this thing will drop. Sometimes it'll make a new low, but usually it's coming back down to retest this low. Sometimes it's a new all-time low. So if we come over and we're looking at ink right here, you'll notice that it did this same pattern where you have the low, the high, it rejects, it comes back down. This is the mid-range. It rallies back up into resistance, rejects again, and then it comes back down for that final flush. And this is the final capitulation. This one actually did make a new low past what this one was. But we've obviously held support, and we've just kind of trended sideways from here. So what happens next is what's called the markup phase. And that's where it runs all the way up, breaks out of the range high, holds support, and then it just starts kind of continuing on into its new cycle. So that's what's coming up here next. And if we look at ink from where it's at right now, just to its prior all-time high, that's 60x. So, I mean, with it only having 80K or 80 mil in market cap, with it being so heavily liquidity bonded with all of the other ones, I really just don't see a scenario where it doesn't pump super hard. And with all of the other ones, if all of those do 30, 50, 100x, I mean, this thing could actually just go up insanely high. It's hard to say exactly how high. I don't know. But 60x just to the prior all-time highs, I'm confident it makes a new all-time high this cycle. That's all I can say. These are just too much work to buy. I understand that. I really do. If you don't want to mess with Web3 and you don't want to bridge and you don't want to swap on DEXs and all that stuff, set up a MetaMask wallet, I can definitely understand why you wouldn't want to do all of that. It is easier to be able to just buy tokens on exchanges. You know, and realistically, you can get really good tokens on exchanges without taking much risk. So, you know, to each their own. I have already just been used to bridging. Back in 2020, when DeFi summer first took off and all of the DeFi stuff were blowing up, Uniswap took off. Everybody was able to swap on chain. You know, yield farming was kind of at the epicenter of everything. It was the first time we had true ways to earn yield on our tokens and whatnot. You know, that was really cool. But I learned how to do everything during that period. So now into this cycle, it's all relatively the same stuff. It's just moving to a different chain, doing the same things, adding a new network in MetaMask. But if you haven't done all of that stuff, it's kind of a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie. All right, guys. I'm going to cut this off at 1 hour. So we've got 56 minutes. We're at 56 minutes and 40 seconds. So you got 3 minutes to ask me all of the questions that you want to ask me before I close this off. If too hard to buy, how do you plan on winning? The same thing happened with Hex in the last cycle. It hit $88 billion in market cap, and even less people knew how to use Uniswap in the last bull market. So, incentive token. It's on Pulse Chain. Can you look at the ZBCN chart? I suppose so. I don't know what it is. Is it ZBEC network? This is the token, I believe. Realistically, it looks solid. It just had its first breakout right here. It broke out, retested the range high as new support. And now it's got continuation up. We had this bounce back up, having this smaller correction back down. In my opinion, as soon as ETH starts bouncing, which I think is soon, it could go a little bit lower. But overall, this just looks like an ABC correction back down. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves up, A, B, and C back down. It probably will come a little lower. My guess is it would probably bottom at the 618. So 618 is going to be 0.0037. So it looks like it'll come back down just a little bit lower, but it also could hit the 786. It's not like it has to just stop there. But regardless, this looks like this little impulse. It looks like it'll bottom and then end up doing something like this into its next run. So this is honestly what I think is going to happen shortly after. Can you walk through how to buy Pulse? I'm going to make a video next week talking about how to buy Pulse, and I'll do the whole breakdown of everything because I haven't made one yet. So if you can hold on until the beginning of next week, I'll make one for you. PTGC price prediction. I don't know, but I honestly think it can go up 100x from here. That's my guess. Liberty Swap is the easiest way to get in now. I agree. That's the best way to move through Pulse Chain right now. Thoughts on ordinals? I really like ordinals. If we can go take a peek at those real quick. Let's look at the Bitcoin chain. Oh, right here. Oops. My favorite's the Node Monkeys. I think the Bitcoin puppets are the best after that. On-chain monkeys, Genesis, I've heard that these were actually the true first chain, so I think that this one actually could take off at some point. But to be honest, I think that the Node monkeys are going to be the equivalent to the crypto punks this cycle. So I've actually accumulated a node monkey, only own one. Thought about buying another one, but all these did just recently was break out, and now they're selling off and perfectly retesting that downtrending resistance as new support. So in my opinion, all of these are about to reverse. But what's cool is you can buy a node monkey right now for $4,200 or 0.04 Bitcoin, but they were literally worth 0.65 Bitcoin in March of 2024. So realistically, I think that these will make a new all-time high, and node monkeys are going to be the crypto punks of the Bitcoin chain. So I think ordinals are prime. Even if you don't buy a node monkey, there's a number of other NFT projects over there that I think are worth buying. And I think the ordinals are going to have an Ethereum-like run, potentially even a bigger one, because there's more Bitcoin wells on chain than there are actually Ethereum. If you're interested in ink, Doubt has over 3 million liquidity with it. Yeah, so if you guys are, I was just talking about, hold on, where do I have it? Okay, so ink, right? So this thing's worth $1.51, 83 million in market cap. But one of my favorite tokens on Pulse Chain is Doubt token. And this has a significant amount of liquidity bonded with it. So when I first made this chart over in here, we were all the way down here and we were just starting to break out. And we ended up making this big breakout, and then we pulled back onto trending support. But this thing is still just holding perfect support, and it's held up amazingly inside of this dip. So I'm honestly really confident that all this move was an A, B, and a C correction, and everybody has a chance to be able to actually buy this dip at a discount. And I already posted this on, I made a YouTube video about this token once already where I covered it, and it was right here where I told everybody to buy. And shortly after that video, it followed exactly what I thought would happen, and it went up almost 2.5x, over 2.5x. This thing went up from my signal. Obviously, it's not up 2.5x right now, but it's still up probably, let's see here, 74%. That's pretty amazing. So this one is so heavily liquidity bonded with ink that as ink goes up, it's 60x just to its prior all-time high. This one is going to go up even more. And so I honestly think that this one is one you should be paying attention for, because it's got $3 million worth of liquidity in ink bonded with it, with the Doubt token. So realistically, this is hands down one of the best tokens, because I'm really confident that ink does that big cycle like I was just talking about. God damn it, I forgot to share with you guys the tab again. I've done this twice now. So Doubt token, this is the one. When I made my YouTube video about this, it literally went up 180% from where I first talked about it. And then I told everybody to get into it. And now it's had this pullback, and you still have a chance to be able to buy kind of, relatively like the midpoint of this dip. But all this is a big ABC correction. This thing's about to start absolutely ripping. And I'm telling you, this thing is going to be one of the most valuable tokens on Pulse Chain, because it has so much more liquidity bonded with the ink token. Remember, we were talking about the incentive token earlier. I don't know where it went, but we were talking about incentive token, and I'm telling you that this one is going to do more than incentive token. So if incentive token goes up 60x, just based off of the liquidity bonding with Doubt token, this one would go up 200x. So I really have a lot of confidence in it. I think it's going to take off in a big way. You guys should probably check it out. If you're going to bridge over to Pulse Chain and you buy the core coins, this is the next one in line that I would probably buy, because I really think that it's going to blow up in a big way. Make a video on how to buy Pulse. I will. It's coming next week. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to close it up. I got to go feed and water my chickens and my dogs. I appreciate you guys. Happy weekend. Looking forward to what's coming over the next few months. I'm going to keep this schedule going. I'm going to look for every Friday. I'm going to do a live stream, so I'm going to keep on with it. But yeah, I look forward to having you guys a part of this. I appreciate you guys sticking on. How's your grandma doing? My grandma actually died. Yeah, so that grandma I used to live with in the last cycle when I was trying to start my YouTube channel, she died. I actually live next door to them, but yeah, I live next door to my grandpa. He's still alive. I spend quite a bit of time with him. He's about to turn 90 years old, so he's doing really good, actually. But yeah, man, my grandma passed away a couple years ago, but you know, realistically, she didn't like go out on in a bad way. So, and I spent a ton of time with her. I moved back home, was around her a lot the last few years before she was dead. So honestly, I have no regrets. Everything worked out exactly as it should. So no need to feel sorry. Everything worked out. But yeah, I wanted to explain that because a lot of you guys actually know the lore behind my grandma and me living in her a basement. So that's the same grandma that passed away, unfortunately. But yeah, you know, a lot of good times trading in that house. That was where I learned how to trade, made my first trades on the Bitcoin network over there at her house. So, you know, kind of some cool stuff. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you guys so much for the kind words about my grandma. I appreciate that a lot. You know, she was awesome. But with that being said, you know, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.